What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and it's D&D news time. Guess what, folks? We know the announcement of the next D&D hardcover, Post Candlekeep Mysteries, is coming tomorrow. That being said, I thought it was a little light on D&D news. We were getting Tasha's Cauldron of Everything leaks left and right, and we've had basically nothing for Candlekeep Mysteries. We've had a couple announcements of the different names of the adventures and that little bit of info we had up front, but I think it's basically because it's an adventure path, it's just kind of hanging out. So thank you to Ash Forey over on Twitter for sending me this. I had heard that there was going to be an announcement tomorrow, but I couldn't validate it with any kind of links when I went searching yesterday, but here it is. February 23rd, I've heard 8 a.m. Pacific is the potential announcement time. Again, take that with a grain of salt, but it says here, May 18th will be the next hardcover. Your first look at the next D&D title comes on February 23rd. Keep an eye on wherever you get your D&D news for a preview of the book. I'm going to say keep an eye here on Nerd Immersion because more often than not, Amazon will leak this information at midnight tonight because it's midnight and it's worldwide, so we might get the leak of this information later tonight, and I'll be up, so keep an eye on the channel because I'll probably make a video if more information is leaked, and then we'll wait for the official announcement from Wizards and do a follow-up video. Currently listed at $49.95. That will likely change, as they often do once the official announcements have been made. There's ISBN numbers here, which I don't recall seeing in the past. If that's the case, maybe someone can do some snooping and find more information based on that. The only other thing is it has 1.25 pounds. That doesn't mean anything because those weights and dimensions have been known to change in the past. So there you have it. Tomorrow we'll know what the next book is, post Candlekeep Mysteries. What do I think it is? Well, I don't think it's Dragonlance. I've said this before. I think they're going to do the paperback book, which we know is coming in either June or July. Can't remember off the top of my head. That I think is going to come first, and then the Dragonlance campaign setting, whatever it is, will come after the fact. And I think that that's probably largely based on playtesting, right? We know there's an extensive playtesting process that happens at Wizards of the Coast. So my thought process is, unless they kind of knew ahead of time that the Dragonlance lawsuits were going to resolve themselves in a positive manner and they would continue forward with it, then I don't think they would have had the time or the ability to playtest Dragonlance-related things until after the lawsuit was resolved. So my guess is right around the time that we heard that Dragonlance was going to be now happening, and then we got the announcement that the book was coming out, my guess is until that happened, sorry for that, there was no playtesting done of Dragonlance. So my guess is once that announcement was made that, yes, Dragonlance books are coming, then probably immediately after the fact, they said, okay, it's time to start playtesting. They might have had stuff they were workshopping in the background, and then they're like, okay, now it's free to go out. Playtesters go playtest, and then that means that Dragonlance will have the first part, the end of last year, or I guess really the first part of this year, to release probably, I'm going to guess in September, maybe August, would be Dragonlance, given that people 6 months or so to play test it, get the ideas, get that feedback in, and then go forward. So what do I think this May release is going to be? Well, we saw a lot of, I remember I was making predictions that it might be a Feywild-based things. We saw the updates to the Neverwinter game, so I thought that maybe it was going to be Feywild based on the Feywild focus of that. I'm going to stick with my guns on that and say that it's going to be Feywild. It's going to be an adventure. That's what I'm going to say. I think it's going to be an adventure path of some kind. I don't think it's going to be, especially if we're going to get Dragonlance later in the year, which I do still think is happening, I don't think it's going to be a Forgotten Realms specific setting. And why do I say that? Because we've already had Eberron. We know that Dragonlance is coming, I think, anyway. So I think that it would make sense to release. We already have Candlekeep Mysteries, which can kind of be, specific, but it's really Candlekeep. But I think it's going to be a setting agnostic adventure. So this means you could run it in Wildmount if you wanted to, right? You're using Critical Role stuff. You could run it in Eberron if you wanted to. You could run it in the Forgotten Realms if you wanted to as well. Or you could run it in Dragonlance when Dragonlance comes out. So that's my prediction, is it's going to be an adventure module. It's going to be system or location agnostic. I could be wrong, right? It might end up just being the Forgotten Realms like it seems to always be. But that, I think, would be a good way to sort of be a stepping stone into new stuff. We already know they were planning on reviving classical settings. So if you're going to start doing that, it sort of makes sense to deviate from that. Let's set everything in the Forgotten Realms. Let's kind of go for these are adventures. And then we give you sort of like maybe the first chapter is like, if you're going to run it in the Forgotten Realms, do this. If you're going to run it in Greyhawk, do this. And Dragonlance, do this. That's what I think would make sense, especially if you want to try to sell it that we're going to push things other than just the Forgotten Realms. And with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything coming out, or having come out, Tasha's Cauldron had, we had a lot about Tasha, and there was history and stuff shown about her in the books and through the little snippets there, and the fact that there was like Baba Yaga, and she was tied to that, and that kind of had like a Feywild vibe to it. The updates to the Neverwinter game revisiting a Feywild thing. And we've seen the Hells already through Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. We've seen a ton of material plane stuff through all of the other adventures. We've seen a little bit of the Abyss kind of in the Underdark and Out of the Abyss. We've seen city-based stuff with Waterdeep. We've seen snow and tundra-based stuff with Icewind Dale. I think it's now is a good time, especially if possibly Planescape might be coming or some sort of plane hopping thing. Now is the time to dip your toes in plane hopping. And I think doing something simple, not going far, going either to the Shadowfell or the Feywild, the closest to the prime material planes we're talking about other than like Avernus. That's the way to go. Keep it close to home, right? Not too far as planar, distances go. And I just think because of the Neverwinter changes, because of Tasha's Cauldron, I think we're leaning more Feywild than Shadowfell. I could be wrong, right? It might go Shadowfell and go more of like a darker Barovia vibe. People were trying to use the Boneyard minis as a jumping point for that, but the promotional material for that says it's system agnostic or, setting agnostic kind of a thing for the minis. And I think that's what we're going to see from WizKids in the future is if we do get campaigns, like campaign modules, we'll get minis for that. But I think they're going to go more in we saw Fangs and Talons. Now we're seeing Boneyard. So we saw sort of like fanged creature monsters. Then we saw Boneyard, which is undead. So I think we're going to see more settings like that. Like maybe the next one will be like Lords of Madness and it'll be aberration based. And we'll get little things like that kind of giving us the minis. So we can't use the minis as a means to judge what's coming soon. So I'm saying Feywild adventure, not necessarily set in a specific setting, though it might be Forgotten Realms, and I wouldn't be surprised if it is. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. We'll find out in just a few short hours from now. Less than 24 hours, probably for the official announcement. Possibly less than that if Amazon gives us a leak early, which they always seem to do. So I'm just going to bank on that happening within the next 12 hours. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.